The language of our people is a language of 4 tongues. You might have heard of one of them, Ubuntu. It's actually pronounced as Ubuntu. If you break that down, it says that the Munhu stands for the beings. The Chinu stands for the things. The Hanu is the space, and the Kunu is the possibility. All creations, all essences in all forms and all that is falls under these tongues, which speak to the spirit world. And you can recognize the spirit world of a tongue by the sound that fills your mouth with warm air and your ears with melodies when you speak of it. It's the stem. It's the stem on the bud that grows off your tongue as your lips unfold. Wunu stands for all which was created. It includes the living as well as the dead, the ancestors and the imuka, the messengers, the mediators and the fixers, the sorcerers and the sluts. All help the mortals organize their cute but fleeting dimension. And the highest messenger, Imana, is both air and flesh and is everywhere in Hanu. The child will not learn about all 4 tongues in its first few years of life, especially not about the kunu, the possibility. The mortals say that existing in a way that does not exist is difficult for a child to comprehend. So this kunu, this possibility that stands for hope, this kunu, this possibility that stands for hope, is something you cannot view or hold, they tell the child. But the child knows it can express and experience it, almost like a spell. This kunu, this hope, comes from all things ensouled by enchantment, trees, instruments, animals, spaces, pleasure, all that is juice and all that is water. So when I think of Black joy in conversation with Emergence, I think of this Chinyarwanda word for emerging as more than one, multiplicity, ubwinshi. Ubwinshi is an indication of quantity, but it is more than that. It means both quantity and destination, like a deep well that you can sit in. I was talking to a friend when we were displaced, and she said, "How are you?" I said, "I am well." And she said, "I'm well too." And I said, "I want us to be in the well too."
Yes.
On the edge of Lake Kivu, children like me are born in a state of ubwinshi. We are curious, rebellious, and because we are born at the water's edge, we see everything in life as fluid. The mythology around this lake considers that a witch kidnapped into the region by the royal court gave birth to that lake by orgasm.
Yeah. Listen, I believe.
Allegedly.
I believe.
So now, thousands of years of volcanic orgasmic activity have caused an accumulation of carbon dioxide in the depths of Kivu, making our birth water explosive. And so from the deep, fresh water of that lake, from the deep, fresh water of that lake, clouds of gas can suffocate livestock and people. I came to understand how expensive the world is in that water. My understanding was its own birth. My understanding was its own birth in 3 acts. First, screaming like amniotic fluid, then screeching like holy water, and later crying like the swell we crossed into Europe to start a new life in the abroad. First, screaming like amniotic fluid, then screeching like holy water, and later crying like the swell we crossed into the abroad. And in this new land, I found myself hiding under tables, standing next to the light, hiding under tables, standing next to the light. Under these tables, I drew portraits of grown-ups who visited our living room to discuss grown-up things with each other, sticky things that I overheard but could not begin to understand. Under those tables, I tried instead to capture the faces of grown-ups as side portraits. Looking at an auntie or uncle in profile meant not seeing them for all that they really were, which made their horror stories less real too, except for their eyes, because the eyes always speak, even from the side. When I would crawl out from under the table and they would remember I was in the room, I would see their full expressions again, startled at my drawings. I found ubwinshi in clothes. I wore my brothers and they wore mine. There were no boy clothes or girl clothes. None of it made me feel like I was doing something wrong until mounds began to grow on my 11-year-old chest. I was given a pair of Hello Kitty pajamas from my favorite uncle, excitedly walked into the garden in my new pajamas and felt my nipples poking through the top of the pajamas. I noticed the startled faces of my parents and that of my uncle, who looked to the ground with his face folded. Finally, and ultimately, I found ubwinshi in words, words to embrace myself with, to say all that has been left unsaid or left behind at the waters. I write of homes to wrap my tongue around, words to multiply myself with. Ubwinshi is not only a quantity, but a destination, a deep well that you can sit in. As a child, I believed in ubwinshi, this magic, in an unbridled way. I saw magic in all things I had no explanation for. Magic was why I could fly in my dreams, why a wound hurt less when my favorite auntie kissed it, why a chicken kept running when its head was cut for slaughter, why birds found their way home at the beginning of spring, why my parents escaped death through the eye of a needle in wartime. But I was called to womanhood early. Words like luck for family and sin for my body came and took the place of magic. Magical thinking became a false belief, imagining freedom a thing of superstition. Over the years, I've learned that the way people envision the future is often influenced by the limitations people know from their past. Trauma is not an identity. Yet it is sometimes difficult to look beyond the comfort of habitual pain. We sometimes carry the weight of trauma for so long that we don't know who we are outside of suffering.
That's right.
Our dignified, emergent lives start at the borders of trauma. And as resistance workers, we have to be able to envision the day after the revolution before we know what the revolution is actually working towards. The revolution in itself cannot be the goal. Future thinking is the audacity to dream. And what makes this mindset a challenge is what it demands of the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves to be post-revolutionary and self-evidently free, which then poses the next question: who do we want to be when we finally get to freedom? Thank you.
Thank you.